Hello! Welcome to another edition of Friday Drinks. A special welcome to myself. This is my first one in the new year. I understand
welcome
you guys...
back.
Well,
yeah, welcome
thank
back.
you. Yeah, because you guys are not going to say it, right? I say it myself.
No, we are not.
I understand you guys had a good show last week with Timber.
Yes, we did. Got rave reviews, mostly because you weren't here.
I think it has a lot more to do with the nuggets that Timber dropped than anything that you guys might have said.
Yeah, precisely because you are not here.
Well, it's good to be back.
Well, good to have you back.
Well, thank you. And here we are again in our usual place, talking about things that we really ought not to be talking about. And if there's anybody out there who thinks that we know what we're talking about, please take a couple of Panadol, lie down, the feeling will pass. In the meantime, what are we drinking today?
Okay, so this is an interesting one because we're going to share the tea that you bought.
Yes, I'm having tea.
And it's a rooibos, but it's got masala, chai, spices, and turmeric. And I think you're going to enjoy this one, especially brewed for you. So
Well, thank you.
let's try it out. Because we were never going to drink this tea, so
No, I
I
wasn't.
thought, you know what?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, we might as well just have it.
So how did you decide to buy it if you never drink this tea?
He was given.
Okay, can you at least let me lie about it?
Okay.
And if anybody's wondering why I'm drinking tea, I'm trying to prove to myself that I can do a month with no
Of the
alcohol.
sauce.
Yeah, and we are on day... What's it? Yeah, around day 12, somewhere thereabouts.
And
What are
how's
you-
it been? How's it been for you?
It's a strange feeling.
Rufaro does it every year.
Well, no, not every year, but I've done it a few times. Yeah, it's good. It's good to detox and reset, refresh. So I'm
So I
detoxing.
I suspect that some of your more brilliant ideas come around this time when you're sober, right?
no, not at all. Quite the opposite.
I'm feeling very uninspired and tired.
So withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah.
So
could
you
call
are an alcoholic.
me. Anyway, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking a detox concoction with which is basically squeezed beetroot, ginger, and some pear and apple.
Oh, that sounds very nice. Homemade?
Homemade, yeah. Juiced it myself.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
And why are you wearing pink trousers?
They're not pink.
What color
What
is that?
color
It's
is
not
that?
pink.
Educate us.
It's coral.
Okay, there's a
And
color.
that's a color?
Yes, it is. It's called coral, not pink.
Okay, I think there's
Thank
something
you very
wrong.
much.
I think there's something wrong with you if you're a man and you know more than 6 colors.
I
Absolutely
concur.
not. It just means that you're more fashionable than these drunkards, yeah? But it's perfectly fine. And also, there's something in the fashion world, there's something that's actually happening right now in Florence. I think wow, you wouldn't know about this, but
No, I
it's
wouldn't.
Pitu Umo. So Pitu Umo, it happens biannually, and this is the winter season. Pitu Umo, it's a men's fashion designers get together in Florence.
And you are
know,
following it closely. And
very
getting
much
cues.
so. Very much so. So,
I just thought he was going somewhere with this.
well, no, it means that this is the only time when men gather together in Florence and, showcase their fashion. And this is just purely in
My only
solidarity.
interest in that city is it's where Machiavelli lived. And
Well, there's a lot more.
Anyway, gentlemen, we're going
to
into a
it.
rabbit hole.
And
Before-
Pitu Umo is one reason why we are going during a particular season.
Okay, anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Past couple of weeks, a lot has been said in the news and on social media about the so-called blocked funds list. What is this?
yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things about our country. We have, basically what it is money that we owe creditors that we can't pay. And we've come up with a fancy name for them, and we call it blocked funds. Perhaps you could, being the economist, can tell us a bit more about where these, blocked funds come from and why they matter at all.
Okay. So the term block funds is actually an internationally recognized word. It's nothing unique to Zimbabwe. I think what's unique to Zimbabwe is this idea of one-to-one gauge and where we take the entire loan, and Reserve Bank assumes the entire loan or the entire dividend or creditors and puts it aside and says it's now a debt that the taxpayer will carry. Block funds.
So let's just go back a step. So basically, there were individuals and businesses in this country that bought things overseas or got loans overseas, believing that they had US dollars in their bank account. When it was time to pay, they discovered what was in their bank account.
They actually made a payment. So, in the strictest sense of what a block fund should be, is somebody who actually makes a payment out of Zim and made a payment out of a US dollar. Because remember, up until 2019, all our accounts were US dollar denominated. So what happened in 2009 is actually we decommissioned the Zim dollar and we had to reopen new accounts. And those accounts were actually US dollar accounts. So a block fund, and this happens anywhere else in the world, whether it's in Argentina or it's in Nigeria or in Ethiopia. Those are the big...
These are really great examples. But anyway,
yeah. No, I'm using those examples because that's where the issue is. So if you're multi-choice, for example, you've been receiving these US dollars into your account, and then now you're trying to send them home, and you push it through the central bank, and the system just
says, no, we can't.
Says, the funds, yes, your account is credited, but we can't move the funds. So they're stuck. So usually what they term is they're stuck in the RBZ system. So that's why they're blocked funds.
Okay.
They've been blocked from going further than...
But isn't there something disingenuous about calling them blocked? Because to say that they're blocked... in the layman's...
about names, doesn't it?
Yeah, no.
But let's hear him out.
In a layman's mind, blocked means there's actually something there, but for some good reason, it's not moving. But in this particular case, the money actually isn't there. That's why the creditor in South Africa or wherever they are in the world hasn't been paid, because the money isn't there. And it had stopped being there before we started calling them blocked funds. So when we were in the one-to-one dispensation and these payments were being made, the reason why the money didn't move is because it wasn't there.
Okay, so I agree and disagree with you on two fronts. So the first thing is the legal remit for currency is the central bank. So the legal tender between 2009 and 2019 was US dollar. You had no reason to believe that it wasn't US dollar or it was Zim dollar. You had no reason to believe otherwise.
I beg to differ, but anyway, carry on.
You had no reason to believe otherwise. And actually what happened in SI 133 of 2016 is the central bank actually introduced a local currency where I agree with you. It introduced a local currency, but it actually said it's backed up by an Afrexim Bank guarantee. So what it actually meant is the entire system is still US dollar. So we are legal entities, and a lot of us operate in a legal framework. And as far as the legal framework was concerned, this was a US dollar framework. But unfortunately, what we now know is it actually wasn't. From 2009 up to 2019, it wasn't. It was a US dollar multi-currency system in theory, but in practice, it actually wasn't.
Which is what matters, because I can write...
So that's where the problem...
Okay.
That's where the problem starts.
You guys... I mean, how do you even stay on track when I'm not here? Okay, so this money, whether it was there or not, you thought you paid South African Airways for your ticket to Joburg. South African Airways thought they'd received US dollars. They tried to send them to Joburg.
And they couldn't.
They couldn't.
They were blocked.
So what's happening? What's happening to that money now?
So then this is what's unique about
And
Zimbabwe.
why are we talking about it now?
So what's unique about Zimbabwe, then the central bank then says, yes, we stopped these funds from going out.
because they weren't there.
Because actually they were not there. But guess what? Actually,
we're taking over
the entire responsibility. So if it was a loan, not just the interest payment that was blocked, but actually we're taking over
the full debt.
The full debt.
So how much?
So if it was a dividend payment, it's the entire dividend payment that we're going to take over.
But wait, Yes, we say the central bank, but it's not really the central bank because we're now picking this up from the Finance Act. And what does that mean?
That's a very good intervention there, George. So why I'm saying it's very good because it brings again just how from a legal framework we do have a problem, because the person who's actually saying that, okay, I didn't make these payments and I'm gonna verify that these are I'm gonna take over the loans, has no remit to take over the loans, and all they can do is to warehouse and then eventually push it down to the taxpayer, which is now what's happening. So everything that we're talking about is something that happened between 2016 and 2019. And only in 2022 is this bill going to come through Parliament so that the taxpayers can take over that debt. But the taxpayers, and I call it a bailout.
What do you mean when you say the taxpayers are taking over the debt?
So it's now moving, because central bank has no remit to hold this debt.
Yeah.
Right.
So what's happening?
So central bank is going to push it over as national debt, and it will come under Treasury's national debt, public debt.
But wait,
and it can only do so.
But he's the guy who went to Joburg. Why isn't he paying for going to Joburg? Why am I paying?
Because that's where the issue is. Because the central bank says so. In simple terms, it's because the central bank says so. Nobody has actually questioned the central bank and say, oh, but why am I paying Delta's dividend? Why am I paying CBZ's offshore loan? Why am I paying...
We're paying a dividend.
Yeah, we are.
Why are we nationalizing a dividend?
We are. And I have problems with that. And I think most Zimbabweans have problems with it. But they're going to be burdened with this debt, which they were not part of. Remember, the central bank sat in the middle, told us this was a US dollar economy. Then at some point, it's not a US dollar economy because they couldn't make the payments. And then assumed all this debt. But all this debt cannot sit on the central bank. So it's now assumed by...
That's just academic. I can answer your practical question of why the taxpayer is paying. The reason why one-to-one gauge stopped working and we had to have this transition is because the government spent the money. So, you had $100 in your bank account and you literally deposited $100 and somewhere in the back office of the financial system, that money was spent by the government, and there was no longer $100 backing up your $100 bank balance. So when we made that transition from one-to-one to a system where there were Zim dollars, the US dollar balances were not legitimate US dollar balances, which is why they blocked funds, because the money had been spent.
But coming back to my question, so you went to Joburg, or I went to Joburg for a weekend. Mm-hmm. And I had a good time in Joburg. Me, as George.
Why is the grandmother in Muzarabani
now paying for my weekend in Joburg?
No, so you paid with your US dollars, okay?
It wasn't, to your point, it wasn't US dollars anymore.
But to the extent that it wasn't US dollars, the real money was already spent by the government.
So what he's saying is...
one way or the other.
He's saying is,
so the taxpayer spent the money.
I actually paid for my weekend.
No, you didn't.
No, what he's saying, his argument is I paid for my weekend. But on the back of it, the government swiped some of the money. So SAA didn't get the full value. And so your argument is that who's the government?
Because the taxpayer spent the money anyway, so they must pay the money.
No, the taxpayer was George who spent the money, not the grandma in Muzarabani.
Collectively.
No, the grandma in Muzarabani never. Because if we look at the block funds, the names that are on the block funds, but the grandmother never benefited.
You're being disingenuous.
Okay, please, go ahead.
Because money is fungible, right?
Uh-huh.
So you're seeing the SAA debt, but the SAA debt is crystallized because the money that should have gone to SAA went somewhere else, to a government program.
And I think that's the problem. What actually happened was there was a replacement. What the government did, and I thought that's what you were going to articulate there, was the government actually replaced the US dollar in the system. So we had $4 billion in the system. And what they actually did was to print $6 billion, and they pumped $6 billion into the system. Diluted by taking away the $4 billion.
And the $4 billion went.
So it had nothing to do, that process had nothing to do with our grandmother
but it went to government programs.
It went to Command Agriculture. It went to
These are
all
government
sorts of
programs.
things.
The government programs.
which are taxpayer programs at the end of the day,
They were
fundamentally.
not approved. That's why
but
after the
different-
event,
That's a different
story.
conversation.
no, it's not a different conversation because after the event, you then had the condonation bill.
So they were eventually approved.
Yes, they were eventually approved.
They were approved.
But the taxpayer had nothing to do with them.
He elected the parliamentarians who approved it.
Oh, okay. No, if you want to get there, that's perfectly fine.
But anyway,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Remind me again, George, what did you say?
Anyway, Tinashe,
Moving on swiftly.
moving swiftly. Before we go to the break, was there any other way of dealing with it? When we did get to
Yes.
the point where we realized that it's not one-to-one gauge,
Yes.
the money's not there. Was there another way?
Oh, yeah. There is a way of going about it,
Which would have been?
which would have been Delta must pay its own dividend. They took on the sovereign risk. They took on the RTGS risk. When CBZ was taking all this risk, they knew what they were getting into. They were getting into Zimbabwe, and these are the risks.
But there was
of
a clear government policy that it's one-to-one.
That's the risk. So it wasn't.
Oh, sorry.
You took
Manyura.
that risk because every other depositor took that risk. So why is it Delta cannot take that risk?
So Anyura.
Wanyura. Munhu wese akanyura. So why are we bailing out certain individuals and not everybody? So it's not just Delta. In fact, Delta is even serious because Delta was earning in RTGS dollars. It wasn't earning US dollars, and yet it's paying a dividend in US dollars. Wanyura.
No. I think it's unfair to Delta to say that because it was one-to-one. So these were all US dollars. And I think, but where I'll agree with you, the point, I think the way I would articulate it is the business community, because everybody could see the writing on the wall. Everybody knew that one-to-one was a fallacy. And I think what the business community should have done is say, look, this is a problem. How do we resolve it? Honest and have an open and honest
discussion in
and have
2016.
Yes, but they didn't. They pretended that.
In fact, this guy he's got something to answer.
Okay, can we go for a break? And then I'll answer that when we come back. We'll see you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back. We continue talking about the block funds, and just before we went away, Tinashe had a question for me.
Yes, George, I actually have one, and I think that the audience will be quite keen on hearing what you have to say to this. Tell me something, George. When Mangujga said that he had the Afrexim Bank, all the bond notes and the RTGS were backed by a guarantee from Afrexim Bank. When you as a banker and you were accepting RTGS payments from central bank, I assume that they started pushing this new bonds. Did you ask for that guarantee? Did you say, can I please have a look at that guarantee? And whenever you make that payment of bond notes, I actually want to hold the guarantee. And at the material time, after, when they couldn't pay you in US dollars, did you take that guarantee to Afrexim Bank and say, guess what? I need to claim my money back in US dollars?
I'll answer your question with a question. When you
George, you have taught us well, and you
but I will.
No. You say no answering questions with questions. Please answer the question.
No, well, I will use my license to do that. When
you cannot do that.
When you, as a depositor in the system, came to withdraw funds from the bank and you got bond notes, did you ask for the guarantee? And when you went to the bank and you were told there was no cash in the bank, what did you do?
So, me as a depositor, I didn't have a fiduciary duty, right? You as a custodian actually do have a fiduciary duty.
Oh no, but I had a law that told me that I didn't have to do that.
What I mean is the RBZ said there's a guarantee. So when you were making payments, when you were now starting to make payments, let's say you were making IATA payments and you couldn't make the payments, didn't it occur to you that, okay, I can't make these payments and I've got this guarantee from Afrexim Bank. Maybe I should go to our Afrexim Bank and say, Afrexim Bank, I've got this guarantee. please make my multi-choice payments. Please make my IATA payments. Because you guaranteed the system.
No, I get your point.
So please answer it.
No, your point is made. But I think we were all to blame. And I think, as Rufaro was saying at the end of the last segment, from as early as 2016,
the writing was on the wall.
in our hearts of hearts. And I mean, I was being a bit facetious with your weekends in Joburg, but I think all three of us in those 3 years kind of knew, and we probably took a lot more flights than we would ordinarily have taken.
Some of us actually brought in real US dollars into the economy.
Yes, but by the time we got to 2016, 17, 18,
That was probably very irresponsible.
we knew.
No, we trusted our bankers because our bankers said, you know what, we've got a guarantee.
Let's because we can't solve the problem unless we're honest with ourselves. And
No, but he's being disingenuous because
what I mean.
in the last segment, he was the one articulating when you asked the question, which I thought was quite interesting. How could the blocked funds have been dealt with in a different way? And his idea was to say, listen, everybody, whether you're Delta or whoever, sort yourself out. This is not one-to-one anymore.
So
you need to.
I agree with that.
So I think
I'm just saying the bankers must also take their responsibility. But he's saying, oh, no. Why didn't you as a depositor take that responsibility?
it's not you're not listening. I said you've made your point, but
So bankers do take responsibility.
I'm not speaking for anybody else.
Do you think bankers should take responsibility?
I'm not speaking as a banker. I'm here as an anchor on Friday Drinks.
Do you think bankers should
I'm not
take
speaking as a
responsibility?
banker. You're not going to make me speak as a banker. I'm here as an anchor on Friday Drinks. But what I'm saying is, the point is, in those last 3 years, in our hearts of hearts, we all knew. And if any of us at that time, as much as you say you brought in US dollars, if you at that time in those last 3 years had money offshore and you had money onshore, and your choice of where to pay your bills from, you were paying onshore. Because you knew.
So this is the thing. And I like what Rufaro is saying. Rufaro is saying, depositors, you knew, you should take that risk. And you're agreeing with me that Delta, you knew, you should take that risk. How about our bankers?
The bankers have been punished.
Everybody knew. Everybody knew.
The bankers been punished.
The balance sheets have been wiped out. Everybody knew. We've all taken a beating.
Yeah, no, the bankers have certainly been punished because if we go back to before dollarization, right? Remember, all the tier one banks were working towards $100 million US dollars of capital, and this is in real money. And it's the irony of this is hilarious to me. So we introduced the Zim dollar, and we speak to how everybody should have faith and confidence in our local currency and be patriotic. And yet, post-dollarization, the bank capital levels are set in which currency? US dollars. But they've been reduced from 100 million to 30 million. And that's a function of the bank's balance sheets being totally decimated in the transition. So the banks, and I have no sympathy for the banks, by the way, because the writing was on the wall, it was clear to everyone.
So let me be very specific. The bankers, CBZ balance sheet is not being wiped out.
It's been severely decimated.
No, because
in real terms, if you look at
they had
the
a 400 million offshore debt that's now being carried by the taxpayer.
No, but the balance sheet has been severely decimated.
It wasn't their debt. No. I think it was never CBZ's debt. It was never CBZ's debt.
It was the customer's debt, actually.
Because no, this is CBZ's debt.
No, it was a customer's debt.
It's the customer
debt on behalf of the customer.
So if I had a bank account with CBZ and I owed somebody $100 US, right? And I made the payment.
Have you looked at the block funds?
Yes.
The name
where you have CBZ's customers, they're there as customer name.
No.
These are CBZ offshore loans.
Actually, you're wrong.
Okay.
Those are offshore loans that the bank took, but that money was deployed to their customers.
How do you know?
Okay.
It actually says CBZ because you know what? Because it's not like Delta or any of the other companies. We're not using banks.
No, but it's actually
right. So that's where you're being.
Okay, can I explain to you?
Can I explain to you? I'm quite surprised that you're very defensive.
No, because you're being unreasonable and you are not listening. So what would happen if CBZ went to African Bank and took a loan? The name that would appear as CBZ, but CBZ didn't take that money It didn't take all 400 million and go buy computers for themselves. They took that money and lent it to
No,
Zimbabwe.
what we're saying is
No, stop interrupting and listen. They took that money and lent it to their customers. So, yes, while the obliga appearing on the list is CBZ. CBZ is a debit and a credit.
Okay.
There's actually a Zimbabwean company that has benefited from
That money.
that money.
All right. So you've spoken very well. Are you saying CBZ is the only bank that was doing this?
No,
No,
picked
every
them
bank
as an
was doing
example.
it.
No. CBZ is the only bank whose exposure is 400 million. Everyone else,
Because it's
exposure-
by far the biggest bank in the country.
No, it wasn't. At the material time, their loan book, when you compare their loan book, and especially their offshore loans, right?
CBZ has been the biggest bank in this
Stanbic-
country for the last 15 years.
I'm saying if you look at offshore loans,
No, but also-
Stanbic, for example,
But Stanbic
had
was banking.
serious
No, okay,
offshore loans.
we're going down a rabbit hole. In fact, let's move the discussion on.
And we're doing this for a particular reason, which I'm quite happy with. It's okay, but it's great to see this guy hot under the collar.
because you're just talking. You know what? I think I should start drinking again. The world looks much better through the lens of a beer glass. The government this week has said, or was it last week? They've said this is going to start paying a $75 COVID allowance. That's quite interesting, isn't it? Why is the government doing this?
Well, basically, I think they understand that the US dollar is the preferred currency, and people can plan their lives better, and their employees will be better off if they are getting an allowance that's denominated in US dollars. So I think it's great for the civil service. What it's not great for is for faith and confidence in our local currency, because what that is, it's basically signaling to the market that the issue of the Zim dollar has little faith in that currency.
But I have a different view,
Yeah.
especially after our first segment, right? Where we all know it's not real US dollars, but we still go on with the charade. Do we know that that's actually US dollars? Because I think there's a reason why they're quoting it in US dollars. The reason why they're quoting in US dollars and they're playing it this way is because the minute they start negotiating in Zim dollars, it means that they have to print Zim dollars. So it's better for them. Remember, this has happened before, where they created local US dollars and they were paying in local US dollars. But it turns out that that local US dollars was not actually backed up by real US dollars. So we seem to be going back.
You think it don't actually be paid in notes? It'll just move through the RTGS system.
It's the same. We've done this before, so there's absolutely no reason why we should believe it. It will happen maybe for 2-3 months where they're paying real US dollars because they're taking from somewhere else. But is this sustainable? Because that's what we're worried about. Is this
Well, it's an
sustainable?
allowance. It's temporary because COVID is not here forever, apparently.
How do we know? I mean, how do we know?
But,
You know,
but it doesn't mean that you two guys are different, right? So you might you
The question I have for
you're
him is
complimenting each other.
why should you believe it? No, because initially in the other segment, right, he was quite right. He was quite scathing.
No, but
You're being naive.
But what you're saying is not. He doesn't disagree with what he's saying. He's just saying that they're doing it because they realize that it's better for civil servants
True.
to earn US dollars. And you're just saying, well, maybe
They're not real US dollars.
They're not real US dollars.
saying
When
maybe-
you look at the
maybe it's a
monetary
gimmick.
system, it's not real US dollars. But I want to ask the question back again to him, because he was quite scathing of all the Muzarabani granny who thought she was trading in US dollars, but she wasn't. And he had no kind words for her.
Well, no.
He's putting words in my mouth.
No, okay, no more tea for you. Right.
But what's the impact of this
No,
$75?
but more interestingly, right, before we go to the impact. So you're saying Ntuli basically is acknowledging that people can't live or can't plan their lives on Zim dollars. And he'd like to give them Zim dollars, US dollars, even if it's only a mirage. But he keeps telling us that he's not going to re-dollarize the economy. So how do you read this?
Well, I think he's a pragmatist, and I think he gets that as far as the civil service is concerned, anything denominated in dollars will be received better than anything denominated in Zim dollars. That's their workforce, and they want to keep them happy, and that's a pragmatic approach. I mean, it contradicts the idea that we should have faith and confidence in our local currency, but I can understand the pressure and why he would move in that direction.
And at the same time, in the same week that this has been announced, we've also had an announcement about schools and pharmacies abusing the US dollar. And I don't know, how are you reading? I'm genuinely confused.
I'm not confused. I think from day one we knew that this was an opportunity for racketeering and fleecing.
Are we drinking the same tea here?
You need more tea. I think it's when you create arbitrage opportunities, it's like even with the $75 for the civil servants, you're creating arbitrage opportunities. And if there are arbitrage opportunities, is it not hard to believe that someone is going to fleece the system or take advantage of the system? Is it that difficult to believe?
Do you really think schools are fleecing the system?
Anyone who's given the opportunity, why would you believe that we're in heaven and we're all angels?
What did you have before you came here?
No, but maybe we should ask you, do you honestly believe that no racketeers, no thieves,
Look,
everybody
I mean,
is pristine and they will go to the auction and
I completely agree with Tinashe. You get what you incentivize, and the arbitrage opportunity, the gap is massive. I mean, look, if you zoom out and you just look at this philosophically, globally, right? You look at jurisdictions like China where they execute people for dealing drugs. Do you think there are no drug dealers in China? Right? The margins in crime are very high, and people, a certain tiny percentage of the population will, play in that space. Now, if you coming back to the Zimbabwean situation, right? Arbitrage opportunity is massive, and
there's $1.7 billion up for grabs. We're not all moral, and we're certainly not in heaven.
So
and we're incentivizing the fleecing.
This is I would be shocked if
equally. Why are you not shocked?
You guys are going to.
If the opposite was happening, if everybody was trading at official rate and there was no parallel market, that would be shocking.
And they were putting a bid for their raw materials, and when they got the raw materials,
they priced them.
They priced them using the auction, and it was all pristine. I'll be shocked.
You guys are going to drive me to start drinking before the end of the month. This is sad and depressing. And maybe we should just go for a break.
Oh, maybe the interesting thing is it's now schools. I mean, by the time it gets to schools, what do you mean? What do you think has been happening? By the time the headmaster reckons, maybe there's something in here. By the time the headmaster realizes, what do you think has happened?
I still don't think headmasters are doing this. We're going to go for a break. And we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Welcome back. As you can see, glasses have been refilled. You can't see, but we've brewed a fresh pot of shrub juice. It's not bad.
What do you think, actually?
It's actually quite nice.
The masala is good, eh?
Yeah, but I don't see myself drinking this all night. But yeah,
go back to water.
It'll pass the time. There's been a lot of talk about subsidies, command. There's this thing going on with Zupco. There's underpricing by ZESA. Is it the correct thing to be doing? Is it working? Are we doing it correctly?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so I think there are two issues. I think there's a discussion to be had about subsidies and underpricing. Is it ever appropriate? Does the means ever justify the end? And then there's another discussion which is more relevant to Zimbabwe.
So you're asking your own question again?
No.
But you've allowed it.
I'm not asking my own question. I'm unpacking your question, and I'm saying that.
And turning it into your own.
Anyway, but I think what's more relevant in a Zimbabwean context is whichever path we've chosen, which is the subsidy path, is our execution. Have we executed well? And somewhere in the notes to the show, there was a question about ZESA failing again, and it occurred to me to ask the question. When in the last 20 years has it not been failing? So I think primarily for me, the problem with our power utility is execution, the way it's actually run. Whether it's pursuing subsidies or not, it's failing.
Yeah, but can it succeed if it's not properly funded?
I think I know where you're going with this question, and I like where you're going, and I can perhaps get there before
Rufaro jumps in again
does. Yeah.
and asks his own question.
So the real issue is our subsidies are unsustainable. We cannot afford our subsidies. So is there a model, given, again, going back to the politics, that you've already defined the politics, is there a model that ensures that the subsidies are well within our budget? Because our biggest problem right now is our subsidies are unsustainable.
So let's go back to the ZESA example, right? So ZESA is underbilling. Are they getting a check from central government to make up the difference? And for you to make the picture a bit more vivid for you, I lived in Mozambique, as you're aware, a couple of years ago. In Mozambique, I lived in a flat by myself. My electricity bill, I was going to say my ZESA bill, my EDM bill in Mozambique, in US dollars, was higher than my family that was back in Zim, living in a much bigger property with a lot more going on. I was paying more in Mozambique than my family was paying in Zim, in US dollar terms. And yet Zimbabwe was importing power from Mozambique.
It's unsustainable.
Without knowing the costings and the inner workings of ZESA, it smells like there's a problem, which can only be fixed if every month or every year there's a check from Ministry of Finance to ZESA to cover the difference. Is that check coming?
So what they do is it usually goes through our monetary system and not our fiscal system. But you're quite right in just making it vivid so that people understand. So at the end of the day, because we can reduce it to numbers, there's a check that must be written to ZESA. And that bill, we cannot afford it. When you sum up all our subsidies, we cannot afford that bill.
Yeah, I think you guys are onto something. I think you're 100% correct. But I also think that it's an execution problem as well, because should everybody be subsidized? Does it make sense for everybody to pay less for electricity? I understand the idea of trying to protect society's least and most vulnerable, but that doesn't seem to be the case, because even those living in mansions are getting charged electricity at the same rate as those in high-density suburbs. It doesn't make sense.
Those who live in mansions are the ones who control the political levers.
We've got a common friend who runs a business that consumes a lot of electricity, and he makes a lot of money. We'd like to think he makes a lot of money running this business, which is subsidized, probably by a factor of 50
10.
or 60%.
I would say more, but yeah.
And trust me, when he's selling his product to his customers, he's not saying, "Oh, I've got cheap electricity, so my product is cheap." He is benchmarking with an imported product. And
But I want to move away from, because we haven't answered your original question, right? The original question is we cannot afford it. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, so
So before we get into the efficiencies and whatever, there's a check that we must write. So if ZESA or agriculture, whatever it is, if it was running properly, at the end of the year, they must present
A check to government.
wow, that's the ideal situation. But right now we know there's a subsidy, right? So they must invoice Ministry of Finance, Treasury, and Treasury must say, oh, okay, I do have that money, and I write the check. And right now we cannot write that check because we cannot afford it. So first answer that question before we get into how can we make the system efficient.
So I'll take you back.
How do we ensure that we are well within the budget?
So
we're not
I'll
at
take
the
you back
moment.
to the early days of dollarization post 2008. From 2009 going forward, and at that time the tariff regime was cost recovery. So we were paying a fair price for electricity, and what I noticed even in my demographic is that everybody became sensitive to their utility bill. And people started buying solar geysers. They started switching from electric stoves to gas stoves because they did the numbers and it made sense. They made significant savings on the electricity bills. We didn't suffer.
Why was it not sustainable? Because what you're saying is we just must price our products. Why is pricing our products not sustainable? Because that didn't last for, that only lasted 4 years.
Yeah.
I think you've answered that question by saying those who live in the biggest houses with the biggest electricity bills are the ones that make the policy.
But you see, here's the thing, which is, so if you start from a place where the tariffs are at a bare minimum cost recovery, right? Everybody's paying fair value. Then you can identify, right, at a macroeconomic policy level, sectors that you want to help with subsidies for whatever reason. Okay, so if you think that farmers should have their utility bills subsidized, they ought to actually be billed at the same tariffs as everybody else. And then if they meet the policy objective, as in producing a certain hectarage, with a certain yield and delivering so much grain to GMB, they then are able to claim as a rebate, a discount, because they pursuant to the policy.
More complicated.
No. It's actually very simple, because all you're simply saying is everybody gets billed.
Okay, you're the accountant.
Everybody gets billed.
Rebates.
Yeah.
Do you see rebates working?
Everybody
How many
gets.
farmers do you have? How many?
Everybody gets billed at cost recovery, and then in the context of some policy initiative or objective, right? If the government is saying, well, we want to incentivize this particular behavior, if you behave in this fashion, then you'll be entitled to a discount or refund. Then you, after you've met that objective, then claim. Because what's happening right now...
Okay, yeah.
I would have a different model.
But I think, okay,
my model is simple and straightforward. Government, you collect $3 billion. If you decide that $3 billion should just go to agriculture as a subsidy, well and fine. You have that prerogative. You're the political power. You're the political party in power. Well and fine. If you decide that you want that $3 billion to go towards healthcare, that's you. Subsidize the full healthcare. If you decide you want to subsidize education, that's up to you. The problem I have is you have $3 billion.
And you're spending 5.
Actually, in Zimbabwe, because we always do it in retrospect, we're actually spending double or thrice the national budget on subsidies. That's the problem I have. And we only know, because we are not accounting for it properly, we only know 3-4 years later that, actually,
there's this
bill that we didn't pay for, and it came through inflation, and the number looks innocent, but actually, at the material time, it was a huge bill. So what I would do is our accounting should be such that if the political party in power can decide what they want to do. It's inefficient. It's not something I'll agree on, that you give farmers free inputs or you give teachers exorbitant salaries or whatever you decide to do. But you must be told that what you can spend is $3 billion US. What you do with that $3 billion US is really up to you. Then it won't be inflationary. Then we won't have these inefficiencies. Then we won't have the moral hazards that we currently have.
My view is subsidies should be centralized basically in 2 or 3 places, in 2 or 3 ministries. One is the Ministry of Social Welfare, currently Ministry of Labor's Public Service, blah, 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 and Social Welfare. The other is Ministry of Industry and Commerce. And the third is possibly Ministry of Agriculture and maybe Ministry of Mines. Now, start with Ministry of Social Welfare. They should have a budget, a current year budget, for poor people, and for whatever they consider is basic that poor people must have. ZESA should do their job and charge people what they should charge
Market
people.
rate.
An economic tariff.
And poor people should go to the Ministry of Social Welfare and get a coupon or something that they can take to ZESA and say, I only have to pay you.
But you still have the same problem if you're outside of the $3 billion
but
revenue.
I'm agreeing with you. It must be within this year's budget. So there's a vote for poor people. And there's a meeting at Ministry of Public, at Social Welfare that says, we've only been given this much for poor people, and this is how we must spend it. This must never be ZESA's problem.
Okay.
It must be a Ministry of Social Welfare problem. If there's industries we want to develop, and I'm not making this up, this is how it works in other countries. If there's industries we want to develop, Ministry of Industry and Commerce has a fund to develop industries. And they sit down and they say, we got from central government this much money this year to develop new industries, and this is how we're going to distribute it.
Do you know why most countries are under that system? Because it's actually not tax revenues that are then funding the welfare. It's donors. So donors then say, no. ZESA must charge
Whatever
its
it must.
economic tariff, but we are willing to help the extremely vulnerable.
And
or it's education, then the donors are saying, we're willing to help.
you know why the donors
extremely
are
vulnerable.
the donors are not sitting in some European capital and dreaming up there's a problem. The Ministry of Social Welfare has sat down and thought, shucks,
We need to get
we
funding.
don't have enough money here.
Okay.
Let's run around and look for money to cover the gap. And they've approached donors and the gap's been covered.
Absolutely. So the gap, and I like that analogy because our gap does not come at the Ministry of Finance. It comes RBZ, at RBZ level.
Well, it's sitting all over the place. It's sitting in RBZ.
Yeah, but it's in the monetary system. That's when you then see the gap.
But that's only part of it. It's sitting in ZESA because there's under maintenance in ZESA. When your transformer in your neighborhood goes and you're asked to collect, it's because ZESA has been under maintaining its infrastructure. It's sitting in GMB. GMB is not operating efficiently. It doesn't have all the resources that it needs. And it's just not showing up. It's going to show up in a generation's time when the silos are cracking. It's going to, if you go to all the government schools are being run by parents. When a school is due for painting, it's the parents who do it. Because that's where the gap is sitting, because the school fees at the school is not at the
Cost recovery.
So anyway, that's my model. All parts of government should just charge what they should. And the subsidies should be centralized in social welfare and in specific line ministries. And the ones in the line ministries must be for development of new industries, pretty much, and nothing else.
Yeah, I think where I tend to agree with you, there's a moral hazard with the present system. The ministry, any ministry is not out to be economic. They're out to have greater social impact. So when you look at Ministry of Agriculture, they're not looking at, are we efficient? Are we within budget? Are we within? They're looking at the greatest impact. And if the greatest impact comes at 10 billion, never mind we don't have $10 billion. They will go for it.
Maybe this is a sober place for us to pause. As usual, all we're trying to do is to inspire you and yours to have conversations. And also, we don't claim to have a monopoly on ideas. Bertrand Russell once said, the most savage controversies are those about matters as to which there is no good evidence either way. So your opinion may be right, his opinion may be right.
Unlikely.
But what is important to us is that you're having these discussions, that you're having them with people around you, and where possible, you're having them with people that have the ability to make or influence policy, so that we can make for a greater Zimbabwe. We have been talking about getting out of the studio this year, gents. So we will be available if you'd like us to come around and have drinks with you and some of your colleagues, be it at a strategy session, be it at a conference. Rufaro and I will be back on the source in a couple of weeks. We are more than happy to come and share one or two with you and inspire discussions and maybe help you look at things in a slightly different way from the way you've been looking at them. Otherwise, COVID is real. Be good. If you can't be good at it.